And so here we go. We appreciate you all being here today. I'll be watching you on the Rumble Rants and over on the Restream as well. We have 3 excellent guests today. Very different topics we'll be rolling through this afternoon. Tommy Robinson is a UK activist and the English Defence League founder. He has been arrested and sued and been in trouble quite a bit. Recently arrested again in Canada. You can follow him at T. Robinson New Era. And we are going to sort of test our appreciation of the limits of free speech and also how much people should defend their cultural heritage, let's say. Dr. Harvey Risch will be on us again as well. He is a professor emeritus of epidemiology at Yale, a legendary professor. And he has a new book. I want to promote that book for him. And of course, always good to catch up with him, see what he's thinking these days. And then finally, Jennifer Sey comes back. She's author, filmmaker, business executive. She was ousted from Levi Strauss for raising certain issues around opposition to particularly extended closure of San Francisco public schools. And she has the XX brand out there. She'll be in studio. We'll be with you after this. Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue. And we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. And if you check out the interview I did yesterday with Stephanie Van Watson, you will hear from that very veterinarian I was referring to in that little bit. All right. So as I said, Jennifer Sey will be in here. She had the audacity to question school closures. Of course, and everything she said turned out to be correct. She sacrificed her career for attempting to protect her children. Dr. Harvey Risch, as I said, will be in here before she comes. Actually, Jennifer Sey will be in the studio. But right now, we're going to talk to Tommy Robinson. He is, again, T. Robinson New Era on X. And he has been an activist for some time and been in the crosshairs of a number of organizations, it seems like. And I got a lot to talk to him about. And I'll watch you guys over on the Restream and the Rumble Rants to see if you have any questions or issues that you would like me to raise. Please welcome Tommy Robinson.
How are you doing, Dr. Drew? Thanks for having me on.
Tommy, thank you for being here. So I want you to just go ahead and present your case and what you've been subjected to as a result.
Presenting my case, I'm a working class lad from a town called Luton, which is 30 miles north of London. I was born in 1982. When I was born, there was 1 mosque. There's now 45. White English are a minority in my town. I've seen the problems that open border Islamic immigration brings to a town. I've seen the cultural change. I've seen the change of freedom. I've seen the 2-tier policing. I've seen the weakness and cowardice of government in dealing with these hostile, aggressive communities. That's not to say, I'm not saying every Muslim's bad. Some of the best people I met growing up in my hometown of Luton were Muslim. But there is a problem. There's a massive integration problem. The school I went to had the Muslim playground and the non-Muslim playground. I've never seen racial divides in my town. Our town is divided through religion. It's the Islamic community and it's the non-Islamic community. We didn't create that. Okay, we didn't create that. Now, lots of the issues that I spoke about, I first started my activism in 2004 when I confronted a Islamic jihadist organisation, which are now a prescribed terrorist organisation, who had been free to roam and recruit in my town as long as I can remember, for my whole life. Omar Bakri, Abu Hamza, some of the world's most feared terrorists, their organisation's head office was in my town. So unfortunately, when no one knew what jihad was, I knew and we had to learn pretty quickly. So I've seen the problems plagued from Islamic rape gangs in the UK. They call them grooming, Dr. Drew. You may have heard of it. We've heard of towns in Rotherham where there were 1,400 children raped just in that town. My cousin was a victim of those gangs. So people understand. I first started talking about this in 2009 publicly when I formed an organisation called the English Defence League. None of these crimes were highlighted. No one knew of these crimes. In fact, there was a conspiracy by those in authority, by religious leaders, political leaders, police leaders, to hide the fact that these gangs were operating. Now, when we formed in 2009 and we started talking about it, we didn't just start talking about it. We formed in towns and cities in our thousands and we started screaming about it. We held banners that said our daughters are not halal meat, and we marched through towns demanding the end of the Muslim rape gangs in our country. Now, it took 4 years before a journalist called Andrew Norfolk was forced to report on these gangs. His words, not mine, he won all the awards for reporting on this, that he believed he had to take this issue back from the far right. Now, when they say far right, what they mean is concerned British fathers whose daughters were being raped in towns and cities across this country. He had to take it back, and he acknowledged that he was aware of these gangs, but was too fearful to report on them because the gangs were Pakistani Muslim majority and the victims were all young white English girls. These gangs have plagued dozens, almost 100 towns and cities in our country. They're coordinated, they operate together, and their sole purpose.
All right, so hold on. So there's a lot to unpack, already a lot to unpack. So I'm going to stop you so I don't become awash in all this. I have a lot of questions, and then I have sort of a comment. So why the separate playgrounds? What is that all about? Why do people have to be separate? I mean, there's plenty of Muslims in this country, they aren't separated. Why the separate?
When you walk into a school dinner table, a school dinner hall in my school, yeah, you'd have whites, blacks, Chinese, Hindus, Sikhs, all sitting together at the tables. And in the corner, you'd have 8 tables of Muslims. Yeah. And I never understood why. As a child growing up, and they had their playgrounds, they didn't assimilate or integrate with us. They weren't friends with us. Yeah.
So I want to make sure I'm hearing you. It was their choice to stay separate. It wasn't some sort of formal administrative space that they had to maintain.
It was their choice. And as I said, Luton is the home. Everyone's the sons of immigrants. Everyone, yeah. All my friends are St. Lucian, Jamaican, Bulgarian, Italian. My mother was an Irish immigrant.
Yeah. No, I get it. So your this is so interesting and complicated, and I want to make sure that people don't jump to sort of headlines about this, because this can be parsed apart in really interesting ways. So it was their lack of assimilation that really bothered you. So here's a question, and I want you to think about it. I ask it not to be provocative, but for you to be thoughtful about it. Should every group that migrates to a given country with a notable culture, with its own culture, should they have to assimilate? And I ask that question because I noticed, and I didn't think I was going to get into this fast, but here I am. I noticed Marie Le Pen brought this same issue up and said, we welcome everybody, but they have to become, I think she said, become French. What's your opinion about that?
My opinion is that every other community has. The Sikh community have come to the UK. They're still very religious, but they have integrated and assimilated in a fabulous way. They work incredibly hard. They don't have rape gangs. They don't sell heroin in every town and city. They don't blow things up or bomb people. Per se, the Sikh community, the Hindu community, none other communities bring these problems with them. So when it comes down to assimilation, yes, my mum was an Irish immigrant. I'm English. I'm born in England. Yeah. I love my country. I love it. I love my culture. Now, when I spent 22 weeks on solitary confinement, Drew, in 2011, When and Muslims sent me a Quran, part of Muslim outreach, to try and target me for conversion. And when I was in there, I took the Quran, and this is when it all pieced together. I took the Quran and I challenge anyone to do this. I took the Quran, I opened it up. I very quickly realized it's not in chronological order when Muhammad said things, but I made notes. And every time it said, do not be friends with Christians or Jews, I referenced the verse. You will have pages and pages of verses within half an hour. Now, when I'd done that, I then sat, and everything I'd seen growing up made sense. I just thought, from the age of 4 or 3, these children are being taught this. Now, if we all taught our children, do not be friends with black children. If we taught them that and we indoctrinated them from a young age, you'd have white playgrounds and black playgrounds. The point is we don't. We don't teach our children they're superior. Islam does. Islam teaches its followers they are superior to non-Muslims. It teaches its followers we're all going to burn in hellfire. It degrades us as cattle. So all of the things I started to learn, piecing together this book, made sense to what I'd seen growing up. The hostility I'd seen, it all made sense. And it didn't take long then. And I started dissecting and looking into Islam more and more at this point. And then, and when I say my hometown of Luton, and you're not allowed to, unfortunately, Drew, you're not allowed to ask these questions. You said controversial or offensive speech. Currently, right now, if you say a man has a penis and a woman has a vagina, you're a hate figure. That's now offensive. Okay. Now the goals have continually shifted. I started my activism in 2009. I was very vocal, and it was only people like me who were talking against Islam that were censored and deplatformed. Now it's doctors, it's nurses, it's scientists. It's totally shifted. You go against any of the agendas. Now, what is the agenda of the British establishment? What is the agenda of the global elite? They are flooding our countries with Islamic immigration. And unfortunately for them, that causes mass problems. Now, they don't want us to talk about the mass problems it brings, because if they do, we might start questioning their policies. Now, again, and I'll go on numbers and statistics. Muslim men make up 2.5% of the UK population. A massive problem. In fact, the darkest stain on British history is the fact that in one town alone, 1,400 children in Rotherham, in another small town called Telford, 1,000 children were victims of these rape gangs. It's predicted that almost 1 million rapes have gone on. Now, 2.5% of the population is Muslim males. 90% of the convictions of these gang-related rapes, 90% are Muslim males, and 30% of the men.
So to my ear, to my ear, if as I look at that, I would go, well, I guess those are interesting observations. You should certainly be able to talk about that. People should be educated about these things. But what I hear is a failure of government, failure of law enforcement, failure of enforcement, failure of local administration. That's almost everything you said to me was all about abject government failure.
Well, it's a failure of their policies. It's a failure of every institution that should have been there to protect the children, because we found out in the government studies that, by the way, when I say 90% were Muslim, 30% of the men convicted are called Mohammed. What the question, unfortunately, that we need to ask is, why are the Sikhs not doing it? Why are the Hindus not doing it? Why is no other community doing these crimes? And when we talk about the crime, you have to understand the level of the crimes. I've done a 5-part series called The Rape of Britain. Okay. In that 5-part series, I focus on a town called Telford. I travelled to Telford. Telford has a 1.7% Muslim population. In that town, 1,000 children were raped and 5 are dead. Just in that town, 5 are dead. The police investigation identified 200 men that were involved in those rapes. 200. Our investigation named 264. An independent inquiry named over 300. There's only 3,000 Muslims in that town. When you get rid of the women and you get rid of the children, you've got 1,000 Muslim men. Out of 1,000 Muslim men, the police identified 200. 20% of the men in that town. So people need to understand the scale of the problem, and also understand the level of the level of sedition that was done to these children. It wasn't about sexual gratification. It was about the total destruction of these children. For example, one girl was 11 or 12 years old. They heated up an iron rod with the letter M, and they scolded her bum because she was the property of Mohammed. Another 12-year-old girl had her tongue nailed to a table. Other girls were taken out to the woods and they had canisters of petrol poured over them. They were urinated in their faces. These are the crimes. And the problem is, Drew, these are our daughters. These are our daughters, yeah? And this was facilitated and accommodated by our government and our police. They failed.
Well, that's the part that stands out for me. I mean, you try to figure out why it has a certain pattern to it. Don't do that. I don't think that's going to bear fruit. What you have to focus on is stopping the problem, and why is the government failing so miserably? Why what is going on here? Now, I want to dial it back a little bit. I got some other stuff I want to. You mentioned freedoms, policing, and culture. Okay, those are the things that you see eroding. Did I get that correct? Freedoms, policing, culture, right? What was the first one?
Politicized policing. We're seeing politicized policing. Politicized people.
Yeah, which is terrible. I agree. It's just like politicizing medicine. Politicizing medicine is out of control. It's disgusting, and I know you've got that going on in your country too. But the question I have is about the cultural, because whenever I see a lot of energy around immigration, if I'm an outsider and I listen carefully to what people are worried about, what it really always goes down to is the identity of their national culture. They're worried I first heard this a couple of years ago from the French. I saw academics starting to worry about what does it mean to be French? What even is that? And I thought, oh, they're worried that they're going to lose this thing, whatever this 1,000-year of history is we call French. Do you agree with me that although I understand these crimes are incomprehensible, that's about government. That's about government failure, which we all have just extraordinary examples of all over the place for the last 3 years. But don't you think most people get mobilized about loss of that cultural identity or potentially losing it forever? That's what kind of mobilizes people?
I believe our culture is under attack purposely. I believe that a void has been created with the attack on Christianity, and Islam has filled that void for many. Islam is strong in its principles and does not budge on its views, whereas now our churches are flying rainbow flags and encouraging transgenderism. So I think that the weakness of what's happened to Christianity, or that certainly not Christianity, but the church leaders, what it's become. But if I give you an example again, Drew, of growing up in Luton. Now, in Luton, when Pakistan won the cricket, in a school called Icknield High School, when we were younger, they had Pakistani flags and they all celebrated it. Now, when it's St. Lucian Day, they have a big festival, When it's Eid, massive festival. When it was St. George's Day, our day to celebrate English identity, they sent letters home from the schools saying, if you bring in the emblem of St. George on this day, you'll be sent home from school. Now, what this does, and purposely does, is we're made to feel ashamed of who we are and our identity. Many of these decisions aren't made by Muslims. Many of them. For example, I'll give another example. 6 councils in the UK changed the name of Christmas in 2011. They called it Winter Festival, and they called it Winter Illuminations. And they changed the name. They took the word Christ out of Christmas. Now, at that time, I was leading an organisation called the English Defence League. We were a pressure organisation. I wrote 360 letters to the councils of the UK. And I warned them that if any council changed the name or took Christ out of Christmas, and the problem is, Muslims don't care if we celebrate Christmas, These decisions are being made by Marxists, by leftists, who despise our country and culture and history, So when we sent these 360 letters, it went all over the news that we were blackmailing councils. And what I made them aware of is the average cost of an English Defence League demonstration to the police is approximately £500,000. Now, that money comes out of your budget as a council. If you change the name of Christmas and take Christ out of it, we're coming to your city in our thousands, Not one single council that year took the word Christ out of Christmas. These decisions, so there's an array of problems here. These decisions are being made by leftists within government, But most people get frustrated then with the migrant community over certain decisions in this way, So there's a whole different array of problems that are happening. But the cultural shift, we feel our culture and our identity, and in fact, we feel like aliens in our own towns and cities. As I said, the demographic growth forecast for my hometown, when I looked in 2013, by 2030, the Pakistani and Bangladeshi community will increase by 70 to 77%. This is in a town that's already 50% Muslim. The black and white community will increase by 1.2 to 1.3%. The change in demographics is happening that quick, that fast, just by birth rate, let alone our open border immigration policy. Now, towns and cities are changing forever. They will never be the same. Our culture is changing. Okay, we're losing the identity of Great Britain. When you think of Great Britain and you think of London, it's changed already. It's probably unrecognisable if you come here. You'll struggle to find an English person. That's a problem. That is a big problem. Okay, we need to preserve our culture, preserve our identity. And as I said, the demographical change, which is simply coming from the Islamic community again, is coming from the Islamic community. It's not coming from other communities.
Again, a bunch more questions. Just out of curiosity, how do the Black and, let's say, Indian, Southeast Asian Indian and Asian folk, British folk feel about all this? Are they as mobilized as you? Are they as attached to your culture as you are?
They are. Yeah, they are. Most my mates are all Black. They're English. Okay, they're English lads. They're English lads. Now, what we've seen is a total smear. We've been smeared and attacked by the media as racist, as fascist. There's not a racist bone in my body, okay? I have a problem with a fascist Islamic ideology that I believe is masquerading as a religion in our country and causing mass problems, okay? We have 40,000 Muslims on a terror watch list. This isn't a joke anymore. 40,000. 3,000 of them are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It costs them £9 billion. We only have 80,000 members of our armed forces. We have a huge problem.
So what are you staying with solution? What do you imagine the solution is?
Well, the solution straight away could be to deport. Again, if I just look in the last 3 hours, Drew,
aren't they legal immigrants? These are legal immigrants, right? These are not illegal immigrants, correct?
They hold dual nationalities. Many of them who are on watch lists will have dual nationalities. And again, if I look in the last few hours, this is the problem with Great Britain. In the last few hours, we've just seen a migrant in the town of Wigan, a migrant from a hotel, because we're putting them all up in 4-star hotels and paying them feeding them every day, a migrant stabbing someone on the floor in that town centre. We've seen 2 Muslims in Luton, my hometown, quoting the Quran whilst chasing and stabbing someone. We've seen 2 refugee asylum seekers go to court today after robbing a man of his Rolex and face no punishment. We've seen another asylum seeker attack a medical worker, an ambulance worker, and not even get punished because it would be unfair as they don't speak English. And right now, Drew, as we speak, thousands of Muslims are rioting in the city of Leeds. Yeah, and our police are incapable of dealing with these problems. Now, these problems, and I say it to countries like America, your open border immigration policy that you've had under Biden, you have no idea what's coming. When I saw Americans complain about Mexican immigration, wait till you've got Somalian, Pakistan, Afghani, Iraqi, an alien culture which is supremacist. The ideology is supremacist towards the American people. That's what you've now imported. You'll see a whole new ballgame. And you know earlier, Drew, when you said the reason we can never stop these crimes unless we understand why the men are doing it. We'll never stop it unless we understand why they are doing it. Yeah. And as I said, you're not allowed to ask that question. If we can ask the question, why are 90% of the convictions Muslim men and why are 30% called Mohammed? I've done an in-depth study of this. I went through what the men say in the court cases. One Somalian said in Bristol it was his religious duty to do this. Other Muslims literally quoted the Quran whilst raping young English girls. It says 4 times in the Quran that Muslims can take non-Muslim women as sexual slaves and take whatever their right arm possesses. These are the problems you're not allowed to discuss. Now, again, should we be discussing this with the demographical change to our country, the fact that refugees are coming into our country and committing acts of terrorism and rape on a weekly basis? Our women are being raped in every town and city across our country. And it's like an invading army's come in and we're just all sitting there too scared to talk about it.
Yeah, and let's be fair, the Old Testament has some extraordinarily violent injunctions as well. It's just, people aren't doing it just because it's there. Well, I understand what you're saying, but let me ask this. I'm curious about this. Why are the left not concerned about the feelings that many of the Muslim communities and nations have about homosexuality? I've never quite got that. I can't. Is it just denial? Is it a sense that it's just a peripheral group that does that? What's going on there, do you think?
Yeah, it's not just homosexuality. It's anti-Semitism. It's views on women. It's all these things that the left are supposed to champion. But what the left have done now is replace their vote base. Yeah, and we've seen a big fallout recently in the recent election over Gaza, with the Muslim bloc vote has been taken away from the left and they fell out. We've just had 5 members of parliament elected who are pro-jihadists. We've had pro-jihadist MPs elected into parliament, 5 of them. Now, why does this happen? And I can only talk to you again about my hometown of Luton, where we've become a minority. The leader of our council, when we were protesting over issues in the town, she literally leant over and said, "There's not enough of you," and smiled, yeah? Now, the leader of the Council of Mosques does a deal with the Labour Party, so your Democrat Party. The leader of the local Council of Mosques, and there's now 45 of them, will sit down and do deals with our parliament. The Muslim community organise themselves in a military fashion when it comes to voting, in a military fashion. Whoever the leader of the mosques tells them to vote for, they will go out and vote. So they get concessions, they get advantages, and they are pandered to. And that comes as a block vote. So in many towns and cities, the white English working class community have simply been replaced. And what we're seeing across Europe is the host nations, whether it be the Dutch, whether it be the French, they have been replaced. But they've been replaced by people who are happy to be reliant on the state. We're not happy to be reliant on the state. We want success. But they're replacing us with loyal vote bank. And actually, the Labour Party admitted this back in the 90s. Tony Blair said they opened up our borders to rub the right's nose in. Yeah. Now, that's exactly what Joe Biden's doing. Your borders have been opened. They want these people to be able to vote. Who are they going to vote for? They're not going to vote Republicans. They've imported 8 million votes and they want to give them. And the same's happening in the Republic of Ireland. None of this is a mistake. The entire West is being invaded. The entire West is being invaded. Let me
talk about you for a second. Why were you arrested? I want to hear your history a little more. Why were you arrested in Canada?
So I landed in Canada. I was interviewed for 3 hours about my entrance there. I then I stayed in Montreal. I met Gad Sad. Do you remember Raif Badawi? Raif is the Saudi, he was imprisoned in Saudi. He said Muslims, Christians and Jews are equal. And for that, they tried to charge him with blasphemy and they sentenced him to 10 years and give him 1,000 lashes. Now, when that happened to Raif in 2011, I reached out to Raif's family. Raif had 3 children the same age as my children, so I kept in contact with his family. They were then given refugee status in Canada. These are the success stories, Drew. There are some success stories. So again, this family are a wonderful family, a fabulous family, and I went to Canada to meet them. Yeah, and I'll just give you when I was 11 years old, the Bishop family in my road welcomed a Bosnian family. Yeah, the Bosnian family come because their father was murdered. They're Muslim. A young boy is his sister and his mother. Now, they've gone to my school, they've grown up, they're fabulous, contributed to our society. They're real refugees. Our borders are open not to real refugees. These are young fighting age men that are invading our country. So I don't want people to think I don't have sympathy or I don't have human nature for struggling people that need help. But that's not what we're seeing. The reason
this is the argument. This is the argument going on in this country right now. You hear these same sorts of observations. And then 22 months in solitary, what was that all about? Or 22 weeks, I guess it was.
22 weeks. So I've been in my most recent one was there was a group of, so these Muslim cases of rape gangs. They were walking into court. I was reporting outside the court, and as they walked in, I said, "How do you feel about your verdict?" This is no joke. How do you feel about your verdict? The police arrested me for a breach of the peace. I was then taken in before the Judge Marston. And he sentenced me to 13 months in prison for contempt of court. Contempt of court in the UK has no jury. The judge can do what he wants. He sent me to prison for 13 months. He let the Muslim rapists go home. One of them got on a plane and flew to Pakistan. He was more worried about me. 29 men in that case were convicted. Okay. What they've started doing is putting reporting restrictions to prevent people discussing these cases in the UK. Yeah. So I got 13 months for that. I was then released on an appeal after 12 weeks. Once we got to court to appeal the legalities of what they'd done, we found out everything they'd done was unlawful. So I was freed from prison. But then I made a documentary called Panorama, Drew. I'd suggest anyone watches it. Panorama is the BBC's flagship investigative programme. Because when I went to jail on this case, 660,000 people signed a petition to have me released. 30,000 people marched on Parliament. When I come out of custody, my profile had gone through the roof. I had the most engaged Facebook page in Britain. I had 1.2 million followers, and if I went live, it had a minimum of 30,000 people listening. They had tried and they'd smeared me and lied about me for so long. I was now bypassing their fake media and talking direct to people sitting in their houses about the problems in our towns and cities and waking them up. So Panorama were a commission to do a documentary on me. I sent a girl undercover into Panorama. So I got a girl sitting down and I caught Panorama planning fake news. I got them on covert recording, telling people what to say in interview, sitting people down and saying, if you say this, this and this, we will put it in the documentary. Do we have a deal? I also got the head of Panorama, John Sweeney was his name. He lost his job over this. I got him making fake sexual allegations against me. They plan to paint me as Harvey Weinstein. This is the lengths the establishment's media go to destroy you if you start to actually be successful in challenging their lies and their narratives. Now, when Panorama come to meet me to interview me for this documentary, I set a screen up behind me and I made my own documentary. And then as they sat me down with their producers, I asked them if they'd ever tell anyone what to say in an interview, because that's not real journalism. They said no. I played the recording. We also found out that they'd been working with a far left extremist organisation called Hope Not Hate, and Hope Not Hate had been blackmailing people. We got covert recordings proving all of this. Yeah. Now, this is the BBC flagship show. The documentary they were doing on me was shelved. But all the accusations from Donald Trump, from Americans talking about fake news, I got every single bit of it on covert recording proving it. Do you know, here's where we understand the control or the corruption of the media. There was a journalist called Stephen Bird. He was a journalist for the Times newspaper. Now, when I led the English Defence League, he was the person who unmasked my identity as the leader of that organisation. I kept in contact with him. When I had all these covert recordings, I called him up for a meeting and I gave them all to him. And he said, do you understand how big this is? Panorama is the flagship programme of the BBC that we fund with taxpayers' money. He said, this is massive. I said, I know, yeah. He's banged to rights, they're banged to rights, fake sexual allegations, everything that we all hear about. I got it all on camera. He went to his executives. He come back and saw me and said, Tommy, said Jay, said, we're not allowed to report on it. I said, what do you mean you're not allowed to report on it? When I produced that documentary, Drew, it had 2 million views in 24 hours, yeah? After 24 hours, I was deleted off of Facebook. My name was made a figure of hate. So even if you mentioned me on Facebook, they deleted you. I was deleted off of YouTube. I was deleted. I was made invisible after that documentary. And not one single British journalist reported on what was in that documentary. Not one. That is the absolute proof of an entire corrupt media and establishment-controlled globalist corporate media, because none of them reported on it. So again, you can watch that documentary. Everything I'm saying is proven in it with covert recordings. He lost his job. They put John Sweeney, the head of the documentary, on gardening leave, and after 9 months, they cut him. So I've been through the mill with the media.
So two things. Two things. I don't think I heard you say why you ended up in solitary, number one. And number two, where can people watch that documentary?
That's Panodrama. So you can go, if you go on Urban Scoop, which is the company I work for, there's a link on there for documentaries, and Panodrama's on there. Or just search Panodrama. Obviously, the show's called Panorama. We called ours Panodrama. If you search that, Panodrama Tommy Robinson, you'll come up with a video link. It's on Rumble. Okay. It's on Rumble, so you can go on there. I was in solitary because my life, because of my activism, our prisons are like ISIS training camps, Drew. Yeah, the level of radicalization and extremism. And I tried warning America of this. They are going to convert your black prisoners to Islam, and they're going to turn them against the host nation, because that's what we're having. 90% of the imams can't speak English. We've got Salafism and Wahhabism out of control in our prison system. They're literally recruiting an army of the most hardened men in Britain and sending them out on the streets. I think MI5 said 800 a year are coming out radicalised. It's probably far more than that. So, but I spent time on solitary confinement. I've had different stints in prison for my activism or for my work. I currently face a 2-year prison sentence now for a film that I made. I made a documentary which, again, covertly recorded and proved total corruption of the media and council. And they gave me an injunction preventing anyone from seeing it. And for that now, I'm currently awaiting a court case for that film, which is mad. It's 2024.
I hear you. I hear you, and I'm aware of some of the frustration and the extreme consequences you've suffered. I still haven't heard why solitary.
They put me on solitary. They forced me on solitary. So they put me on each time I go to jail.
To protect you?
They say
to protect you?
So
because
they say to protect me. So when I went to HMP Hull, which was for reporting outside this court case, HMP Hull has a 5% Muslim population, hardly any Muslims in the prison. I was fine. After 3 weeks, they moved me to HMP Onley, which is the biggest Muslim population of any prison in Britain. And then when I got there, they then said, you've got to go on solitary confinement. So then they locked me up for 23 and a half hours a day on my own, which is what they've done every sentence since then. I went to, so for that case there, I was released after 12 weeks. After 12 weeks, they tried to recharge me. We went to the Old Bailey, the head judge of the Old Bailey read the case and threw it back to the government, because this is the government. Then I produced Panorama, and 48 hours after Panorama, they again, the Attorney General, the government, contacted my lawyers again, and they took me back to court before they replaced the judge. This is no joke. They replaced the judge that refused to charge me with another female judge. She charged me. She sent me back to jail for the crime of contempt, which was asking Muslim paedophiles how they felt about their verdict. They sent me back to prison for a second time, and they put me in maximum security Belmarsh, the most secure facility of prison in our country, which houses the country's worst terrorists. The only person I spoke to out my whole sentence in there was Julian Assange. And that's because I went into Belmarsh prison and left months later without seeing another person. So, and they know that more than 28 days of solitary confinement is adverse for your mental health, but they didn't care. They purposely done it.
Yeah.
They purposely done that. As I said, I'm a thorn in their side. My journalism is a thorn in their side. The issues I bring up are a thorn in their side. Rather than deal with the problems, they prefer to deal with the people talking about the problem in the UK.
So Tommy, I've got to wrap this up. I appreciate you being here. You make me uncomfortable, but that is my challenge in protecting free speech. I really believe that the most uncomfortable speech is the speech that we must protect. I'm mortified that you were taken down for merely expressing your experience. And then the lawfare is inexcusable, of course, but we're seeing lots of that these days. And the reality is, I think the tides are turning. I think people are able at least to say things now. And certainly we've sort of been all about that on this platform, is letting people talk that have been canceled or sidelined for whatever reason. But you do challenge me. You challenge me to my core. But I will defend your right to give your opinions and to express your experience as you wish. So wrapping up, we got to make it quick here. I'll give you last words.
Last words. Open border immigration should challenge you, not me. Yeah, the problems being imported into your country, the danger to your daughters is what should challenge everybody, not me. Not me being truthful and honest about those problems. So I understand these are topics, they're sensitive topics, but the longer we hide from the reality of these problems, the bigger the problem's going to be for the next generation of children. I have a duty as an Englishman and as a father to hand down a safe and prosperous Britain to my kids and the next generation, and we are failing miserably because our generation is a generation of cowards who are too scared to even talk about these issues. So I don't incite hate. I don't incite racism. I simply want England to be protected. I want a safe and prosperous future for my kids. And anyone who wants to follow my work, you can do so on my Twitter link there. We are about to hold the biggest rally on the 27th of July, the biggest rally of patriots that Britain has ever seen in our capital city. There has been a turning point. There's been a turning point since Elon Musk gave us freedom of speech again, but there's been a total shift since October 7th with the general public. The general public are fully aware now our country is in danger, our identity is in danger, and it's about time that we come together and decided to do something about it. So I'm grateful to have this discussion. I understand they're difficult discussions for people to have, but they're needed conversations, because for too long these issues have been swept under carpets and hidden because of political correctness and because of cultural sensitivities and because of fear.
The lack of ability for the government to properly function is the most concerning part. July 27th, Trafalgar Square, is that correct?
July 27th, Trafalgar Square. Last time we had 900,000 people watching live on X. You'll be able to follow it. It's going to be a celebration of British culture and identity because we've been made to feel ashamed of it. We're going to celebrate it. When you see London, it's going to be what London should look like. So enjoy watching.
All right. Tommy Robinson, thank you so much for joining me.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take cheers. We're going to take a little break here. Interesting, challenging. People on the rants and around the Reach. Why are you challenged? Please, why do you think I'm challenged, guys? Give me a break. These are difficult issues to talk about. I don't like blaming and judging, and it's easy, very easy to see government failure is at the core of where things are going off the rail completely. And lack of free speech, lack of ability to learn and hear about these things. That's the other things that has to be defended completely. So, Dr. Harvey Risch is in here in just a second. Jennifer Sey after that. We got a lot still to go. Very different topic coming your way. Pay attention to the people that care about us enough to sponsor us, and we need to care about them. They're excellent products. Pay attention. Joint and muscle pains are exhausting and frustrating, but I've got a over-the-counter medication I want to introduce you to that provides great relief using the power of, check it out, chili peppers. Capsidin is made with a proprietary formula that contains no non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents, no opioids, no anesthetic or steroid, nothing, no chance for addiction, no side effects, no chance it's going to interact with other medication you might be taking. Capsidin contains capsaicin, which is the substance in chili peppers that burns your tongue. That gives you that burny feeling. And of course, I've recommended capsaicin creams to patients over the years, but other capsaicin creams burn your skin. That's what makes capsidin so unique. In clinical trials, capsidin has actually been demonstrated not to burn.
I've been using capsidin to relieve my pain in my hands and my wrist from carpal tunnel syndrome and arthritis. The results have been amazing. I use it every day during my show, and I highly recommend it.
Get the pain relief you need from various sources, even backache, sprains, bruises even. Order now at capsidin.com/Drew to get a 15% discount plus free shipping. That is CAPSADYN, capsidin.com/DREW. Many of us have not gotten over COVID. I'm not talking about the virus itself, but the response. We were flabbergasted about what the government could do to us. There is no telling what they might pull next time, and it's looking more like there will be a next time. So we all have to be what I call rationally ready. That's where the wellness company comes in. TWC is about access to physicians via telehealth, access to potentially life-saving medication. Years ago, having access to medication and telehealth might have seemed crazy, but now it seems crazy not to. Now, with claims that gain-of-function research have been done on the bird flu, I urge everyone to take control of their healthcare with the help of the wellness company. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off all their products, including the 4 medical kits, each of which has a different purpose. And we've added Tamiflu to one of them in case the bird flu does become a problem for humans. Be rationally ready. drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off. Of course, I'm a fan of the healthy aging supplement True Niagen. I've been taking it almost for a decade myself. This supplement boosts NAD, which your cells need to survive properly metabolically, and it goes down as we age. It does so with a nutrient called nicotinamide riboside, or NR, specifically patented form of NR called Niagen. It's the most efficient and trusted NAD booster. NAD can also play a role in reproductive health. Boosting NAD is recommended with prenatal vitamins for women over 30 looking to start a family. Here's Dr. Amy, also known as the Egg Whisperer, a highly influential specialist in this area.
That was when I said, this is amazing. I need every single person going through fertility to take it. I not only take it myself, my patients have shared stories. They took it and then they got pregnant naturally. And that's really my goal, is I want people to empower themselves with the tools so that they can get pregnant without my help.
True Niagen is an amazing NAD booster. You're going to want to add it to your reproductive health arsenal. And of course, it's in our family of Dr. Drew sponsors. Go to drdrew.com/True Niagen for 20% off your order. That is drdrew.com/True Niagen. Enter Dr. Drew at checkout for 20% off.
Dr. Drew said the best way to quit drinking is by going cold turkey, and he's a doctor, so why would you question doctors?
Dr. Drew called me unfixable.
You heard about GLP-1, of course, it's all the rage now. That's a hormone that lets you know you're full. It coordinates digestion and signals between your brain and your gut and the gut movement. And if you're trying to lose weight, here now is a tip. Highly processed foods make you feel more hungry because they are amongst other things, digest it quickly and raise an insulin spike. But whole foods like the Paleo Valley grass-fed meat products and gelatin have shown to help you cut back. Autumn Smith, the CEO, says she uses bone broth in the waning hours of her intermittent fasting. I have done that, and I'm telling you it works. It's only about 70 calories for that great-tasting chocolate bone broth. She says it's okay to do because it helps her not overeat when she sits down for meals subsequently. Paleo Valley's grass-fed and finished bone broth in chocolate, vanilla, and plain help you eat less. So do the meat sticks as well, and packed with nutrients, very low calories. Get yours today at drdrew.com/paleovalley. You'll get 15% off your first order there. Or make sure that you don't run out. You can subscribe for save 20%. Both are available at drdrew.com/paleovalley. All right, so now we're going to bring my friend and scientist, and let me give you Harvey's particular, Professor Emeritus of Epidemiology at Yale. He provided testimony in the U.S. Senate regarding COVID-19 during the pandemic. He has spoken widely about the opposition to masking, vaccine mandates, and the reliability of PCR tests, amongst other things. You can follow Dr. Risch at Dr. Harvey Risch, R-I-S-C-H. Harvey, welcome back to the program. There you are. Good to see you.
It's great to be.
So we were watching. We had a little clip of you from one of the last times you were here before the show rolls in, and you were commenting back then. It was 2 years ago, and you were talking about how people were not doing science, and people are very confused about what science is. And you said something during one of the TWC board meetings. We both sit on that medical board. When you were just made a casual comment, you said in regards to something we were discussing, simply the null hypothesis was non-confirmative. And I thought, that's what science is. That's experimentation tells us. It's confirmatory or non-confirmatory, null hypothesis.
Well, as we know as scientists, it's very difficult to prove the null hypothesis because theoretically you need an infinite amount of data to do so. What instead you show in most scientific studies is a range of possible conclusions that includes the null hypothesis as a likely candidate. And to the degree that you can make that range smaller and smaller, you make null or almost null the likely outcome. So proving almost null is possible to do, proving null is not.
And seeing how far that is from declaring, I am the science. That's just, that was so nonsensical to me and bizarre that somebody who claims to be a scientist would ever make such a claim.
I don't think Galileo did that.
I don't think so either. And yet he suffered the consequences of many of us. Yeah, that's what I keep saying. Do you want to be on the side of the Spanish Inquisition, or do you want to be with Galileo and sort of pushing against what is the sort of wisdom? Scout, yes? Tell us about this.
Well, you broke up just there for a second, so could you repeat the question?
I want to hear about the book.
Oh, the book is great. We just released our book called Toxic Shot, looking at various aspects of the COVID vaccines, with a number of very high-level scientist authors talking about their specialties. And, these shots were rapidly pushed out into the general use in the population without adequate testing, with theories for motivating them rather than real scientific evidence. And then they were obsessively represented as safe and effective when it wasn't even said what effective meant. That we know that these vaccines we were told as effective for preventing COVID-19. But in fact, preventing COVID-19 is not the issue that we should have faced in management of the pandemic. Management of the pandemic should never have been based on counts of cases. Counts of cases freak out the population, and they may tell public health planners a little bit about what to aim for. But pandemics are managed on the basis of what the infection does, mainly hospitalizations and mortality. Those are the main things that have to be addressed in pandemics, not number of cases. And we knew pretty quickly that the cases that occurred were largely transient for almost everybody except for high-risk people over age 65 or 70 or 75, with chronic conditions like obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, histories of cancer, immunocompromise, and so on. So we knew where to focus our efforts, not on everybody. Then the claim was, if you don't get vaccinated, you'll put grandma at risk. That was a claim of transmission for which there was never any evidence that the vaccines prevented transmission. The vaccines, in fact, were never approved for that. In the EUA, the emergency use authorization approvals that the FDA approved, it received only data on preventing infections in the people in the randomized trials, meaning the people who took the vaccines and their risk of infection. That says nothing about their ability to transmit the infection to others. There never was any data about that. And so those EUAs only approved giving the vaccines for people who want to try to attempt to reduce their own risks of serious adverse outcomes. They were never approved for the purpose of reducing transmission. And as we learned pretty quickly in 2021, the vaccines failed to reduce transmission. After about the midpoint of 2021, there was substantial evidence from the FDA, from the CDC itself, cataloging all the breakthrough infections and showing that the vaccines did not prevent the substantial transmission of the infection from an infected person to an uninfected person. And this was happening right and left, and everybody knew it or should have known it. The CDC director on August 6th of 2021, Dr. Walensky, came out and said, what the vaccines can't do anymore is prevent transmission. There was the statement of failure. And that statement of failure was compounded by the CDC releasing data from last fall, showing that by that point, 87% of Americans had already had COVID. So everything we did to prevent the spread of COVID failed. And, why did we subject people to this enormous movement to get everybody to be vaccinated against their own personal interests or personal decisions when the vaccines were failing to do what was purported to do that wasn't even approved by the FDA in the first place?
You could literally say the same thing about masking and lockdowns and school closures. None of those have any evidence basis to them, and they hurt people against the interest of the individuals. And I was talking to Dr. Joseph Freeman yesterday about the original study that Pfizer submitted to the FDA, and they didn't even have hospitalization as an endpoint. I mean, that should have been the endpoint of their study, and it was not in the studies. The book, I've looked at it, it is exceptional. It is encyclopedic. It is is vast in its scope, but it's actually easy to read. As vast as it is, it's not impossible to get through, and it's not thousands of pages. It just really answers every question with very smart people ringing in. I wonder, did you notice recently Dr. Redfield seemed to be making more sense and saying things that were at least clinically, observationally correct, and not clinging to the whatever the lexicon was that they were required to parrot during the pandemic?
Well, it did seem he was backtracking a bit. You could compare his recent statements to ones he made during the early parts of the pandemic. And one of the things that is difficult to know is I don't think any of those people were in charge. I think those people were puppets of the National Security Council, the Defense Administration at the top that was charged with running the pandemic. About a week after the pandemic emergency was declared, management was given to the National Security Council. And that militarized the whole thing and put them in charge.
That's interesting. I feel like that's an evolution in your understanding of what happened to us. Is that true, or have you always believed that?
I think it took time for all of this to come out. We've known this for a couple of years now, but we didn't know it at the beginning to speak of. We knew it theoretically, but we didn't know what that meant at the beginning. And what it meant is that they flipped public health backwards. So the ideas of respiratory pandemic management were well laid out by Tom Inglesby and Don Henderson, the leaders in public health respiratory influenza virus management, in a paper in 2006 saying that lockdowns don't work, closing airports, and flights in doesn't work, that what you do is when people get symptomatic, you send them home. You let them recover, then they come back to work, come back to society. That's what you do. That's how you manage it. And we did the exact opposite. We locked down everybody, and that did nothing except economic dislocation, large economic dislocations, and so on. and all the school children damage that we did from that, and so on. We did all sorts of things that were unscientific, that had plausibility as how they got through, and fear as how they got through into practice, but no scientific evidence supporting them whatsoever.
I also feel like public health has strangely become some sort of ideological political instrument. I forget the fact that the government has used public health. I think public health itself is morphed into seeing itself as something completely different than how it was intended.
Well, I think public health has gone the way of journalism schools, that largely the MPH students apply because they see public health as a tool for medicalizing political problems. So if poverty is not a political problem, but a medical problem, then public health tools, then the tyranny of public health tools can be brought to bear to, quote, solve that political problem.
You mentioned tyranny, and I can't help but bring up the Salut Public, which was Robespierre's committee that perpetrated the terror on the French people for several months, all the heads chopped off. Salut Public means public health. The Committee for Public Health was Robespierre's committee. Harvey, tell me who should get the book.
I think the book is aimed at two overlapping audiences. It's aimed at lay people who are asking questions, who want to read up on different topics, various topics that they're interested in about the failure of the vaccine process. And it's aimed also at a technical level at scientists and doctors who have kind of been afraid to address this for fear of what they might find out. That's what's been inflicted on the population. So there is technical depth in the book, but we also tried to make it accessible at lay levels so that inquiring readers can read through things. And if there's something they don't understand, and there's dozens of pages of footnotes for each chapter, and if those don't help, then just Google the terms and figure out, an inquiring person can do this pretty well. So I think the book covers a very wide audience.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The just go through the table of contents if you want to understand the sweep of it and how targeted and specific you can get into topics, again, with great experts ringing in. Harvey, I appreciate you coming by and bringing us the book. And as always, your wisdom is deeply, deeply appreciated. You can follow Harvey, as I said, at Dr. Harvey Risch, Risch, like fish, R-I-S-C-H. I'm going to remember that now. I apologize for all the months of Risch, or years now, I guess, of Risch, but Risch it is. And you and I will talk soon, no doubt.
Great to talk with you.
You as well. Toxic Shot, everybody. Great name for a book. So we're going to switch gears yet again. And Susan, I wonder if you could bring me that shirt that's lying on the table, on the chair right here to my right. Jennifer Sey, author, filmmaker, business executive. 7-time member of the U.S. Women's National Team Gymnastics, 1986 USA Gymnastics National Championship. She produced the 2020 Emmy Award-winning documentary, Athlete A. She can be followed on X at Jennifer Sey, S-E-Y, and sayeverything.com. And she has some new, there's Jennifer in my picture with me. Where is the camera? It's over this way. This is some of her new logo. Here we go. We have so many cameras in this room now, I can't figure out what's what. Jennifer, so great to meet you in person.
Awesome to be here.
Welcome. Oh, her mic's not on.
Wrong mic, sorry.
Let's do that again.
Hello?
No, still not on.
Did I do it?
There is another mic down here. Try maybe this one. We're so fancy in here, we can't
How
help.
about that?
That's it, I think. Right, Susan? Is that it?
Is that better?
That's it. That's it.
Okay.
There
Do you need me
go.
to move this one?
Yeah. Just push it quietly out of the screen. Oh, that's hysterical.
We brought her in at the end. Oops.
Now I'm gonna
Put this over there.
just put it down. Let's see.
On the table.
I like this. It's
We're a
casual.
professional organization
I love
here, Jennifer.
I love it.
We
This is like my office.
but we haven't had a lot of people in studio, but when we do, it ends up working very, very well for us. We like it. And so take the shit off the table. Okay. I will do that.
Shirt. No.
The shirt. Well, the shirt I want to use and plug some more. So tell me about the new brand.
We launched March 25th, so just a couple months ago. I can't remember if I've been on talking to you about it yet.
I think so. That's how we ended up
once.
getting the goods.
So yeah, it's just been a couple months, 3.5 months. It's going really well. We are the only athletic brand to stand up for women's sports and spaces and female athletes. We like to say we're the only athletic brand that knows what a woman is. People are leaning in. We've had some challenges. We've been banned from a few platforms.
Of course.
TikTok banned our ad called Stand Up, which is really an exhortation to women and girls to just stand up for themselves, to stand up for their deserved privacy, safety, and fairness. That was deemed ban-worthy by TikTok. And on my way here to see you, the same ad was just banned from Instagram.
So tell people your story again over at Levi's and what happened, just briefly. I know it's a longer story, but for those that may not know, you didn't see your last appearance here.
Yeah. You mentioned I spent my childhood as an elite athlete. So that's relevant to having wanted to start this brand as well. I was a 1986 national champion. It's a sport that is rife with abuse, which the world now knows. I was the first, I think, athlete, former gymnast, to actually speak out about that in 2008. Simultaneously, I started working in fashion in the mid-'90s, and I ended up at Levi's in 1999. I worked my way all the way up the ladder. I started as a entry-level marketing assistant. I worked up to chief marketing officer for 8 years, helped the brand go public, and then became the brand president in 2020. I was very outspoken about school closures.
So literally, brand president is of one of the iconic brands in this country, right? That's a major, significant.
It's a big job, and it was a real blessing. I mean, I was so grateful. I love the brand. I wear it still. I have probably 100 pairs of 501s in my closet. I think they're the best jeans on earth. I really do. When I tell the story often in am I going to get the year right? I'm old now. 1986, I went to the Goodwill Games in Moscow. The very first Goodwill Games, which is like a rogue-style Olympic competition.
I remember the athletes brought Levi's with them because they all wanted Levi's.
I tell this story.
Yeah.
It was in Moscow, obviously before the wall came down.
Were you the one
1986.
spearheading that? Because I remember it was kind of a news story.
I've told the story a lot.
No, I remember in real time.
Oh, interesting.
I remember when it happened that we were all like, oh my God, they can't get Levi's in Russia.
They cannot get Levi's, and they wanted them. And, we wanted to trade with the Russian athletes. They were the best gymnasts in the world at the time by like a long shot. The same way the U.S. is the best now, they were that much better than everyone else. So we wanted leotards and pins and sweatsuits and tracksuits. So I brought 501s. I got like tiny 501s at Macy's with my mom in jail, New Jersey, and I traded for all the stuff. Like, I just tell the story to say what this brand kind of meant to me,
Just out of curiosity, how did you navigate the language barrier? How old are you, like 17 or something?
I was about 16 or 17. I mean, you just motion. I don't know. How do you ever do it, But it was amazing to be there in Moscow and see it. I mean, it is a beautiful city, but it was, very strange and eerie at the same time. But it was an amazing experience. So I have a long-standing relationship with the brand. I was very grateful to get the chance to work there in 1999. I stayed for 23 years, which in this day and age is unheard of.
Wow.
But I love the brand. I love the culture. And as I moved up the ladder, I had the chance to shape the culture. In 2020, I was very outspoken about the school closures and ultimately ended up having to leave San Francisco, which I lived in for about 33 years.
What happened?
It was just completely inhospitable. I mean, people were screaming at me on the streets. A woman came up to me. I was at the beach with my 3-year-old daughter. The beach. Like, no one is there. And this woman came up in my face and she screamed at me, "I won't be sad when your children die." Because apparently I deserved to have dead children because I was not wearing a mask at the beach.
So, it really is interesting right now because I've been thinking a lot about those people.
I have too.
And what in the world are they thinking now? Are they still wearing masks in their car when they drive by themselves? Are they astonished at their behavior? Are they humiliated? Are they disgusted? I'm disgusted.
Well, I was disgusted in real time, of course. Another story, and I'll tell you what I think they think. We were at the park, me and my family, my 4 children, large family for San Francisco. You were only allowed to be outside with one household. You probably had something similar here.
Oh my God.
And so someone called the police on us because they assumed we couldn't be one family.
Hitler Youth, everybody.
Yeah,
who are you? Give me the camera. I need this camera. Susan, I need this camera for a second. If you did anything like that during the pandemic, you need to be honest with yourself and really search your soul. You would be the person telling on the family that had Anne Frank in the attic. You would be that person. That's what you did. And you need to be honest with yourself that that's who you were. I understand you were scared. I understand you didn't know. But think about how much you were indoctrinated by these disgusting images and discussing over-the-top government and media overreaches. You are vulnerable, and you should check yourself and understand that about yourself. I hope you weren't in the hypnotized, well, you must be in that hypnotized 20%. Those of you in the 70% that didn't stand up and just wanted to keep your head down and get through, also examine yourself. You could do better next time. Sorry, that's my public service announcement.
This is what my husband and I talk about quite a bit. Well, first of all, I think that people like the woman that yelled at me on the beach. I don't think she's doing any introspection. I think she's still dug in. The agreement, the unanimous agreement at this point is public school closures for 18 plus months was a terrible, catastrophic decision, harmful as well as ineffective.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people understand
didn't protect students, didn't protect teachers, and really harmed 8 to 15-year-olds. And you can find videos of me from right at like 4 months into the closure going 8 to 15-year-olds, they're not going to recover. And public service again. Give me the camera again. Susan. Sorry, camera. Sorry. There we go. Oh, is Caleb doing that? Oh, sorry. I beg your pardon. My fault. I got to search my soul.
I do the teleprompter.
Okay, got it. But what was I? Who was I going to talk to? Shit.
Soul searching about school closures. 4 months. You were outspoken. I don't know. I'm trying to give you a tip here.
It's everything we were talking about, but it was not the group that. Oh well.
I think
aging. You said you're old. How about having this brain? It's not fun.
It happens. You're not going through menopause. But yeah, I think that there is this percentage. I don't know what it is. 10, 15, 20% of the population that will stay there forever, and they will not get unhypnotized.
Yeah, but they can be unhypnotized, but there has to be some sort of movement that equally sort of hypnotizes them.
They're still in it, though. I mean, I still get it on social, et cetera. I still get horrible messages, even voicemails from people about being a Nazi and a murderer for wanting the schools. It doesn't even make any sense. So I think there's a portion that is not there yet. I think the reachable people are the 60, 70% that were quiet.
Yeah.
Some questions.
There's already 10, 20% that were throwing the BS flag at the beginning.
Yeah, that was me and my husband. Yeah. It felt very lonely.
Actually, not at the beginning, to be fair. It took me a few months to come around. But.
Yeah, we were outraged from the beginning. I don't know why, but we were.
There's your new brand. There it is.
Yeah, there it is. Those people do need to do some introspection. Even if I think it's really important that if you, in the beginning, were all in, but fairly quickly were not, to go, why was I afraid in the beginning? Why was I convinced that these egregiously illiberal acts were okay in this particular? I just, that kind of I've been caught up in things before.
Well, let's have that conversation. So under what circumstance would it be okay if, and never is an appropriate answer, under what circumstances would it be okay for the government to abridge our basic civil liberties?
Never. That's my opinion.
And I think never is a viable response.
Only because, you know what I'm going to say, but only because if you set a bar or a line that says in these instances it's okay, when it's misinformation, when it's...
You know what? You're right. Because I am that guy that always gives government a little wiggle room. I was the one when the Patriot Act came out, and I was like, what do I have nothing to hide? What's the big deal?
It's fine.
They need some more. They're not going to help us. Nope, I was wrong. They always abuse the power when you give it to them. And so if we say they can ever abridge civil liberties, we're making a big mistake. You're absolutely correct. So how do we deal with severe, like let's say there's something coming at us where we need to organize as a country. What do? We just get everyone on the positive side of that and just say, hey, we need your help? Or do we police it in some way?
That's what was so difficult during COVID is you weren't even allowed out of your home. How do you organize?
Yeah.
You were censored.
Well, but that was the shelter in place was your obligation, which was just the world's worst message.
And lonely and fearful and angry, and you couldn't You couldn't organize. You couldn't
Right.
take to the streets. I mean, we tried. My husband and I tried to do open schools rallies in the summer of 2020, and the posts were taken down. How do you tell people if you can't, get them on social media? So and that was all by design. I believe that was all by design. So I'm an absolutist. It's never okay.
If we'd had this conversation 4 years ago, I would have been sort of confused / incredulous. Now I'm 90% in agreement.
Yeah. I mean, just based on what happened during that time, I can never go back. It's always a liberal. And you know what? If it is that dire, people will stay home and they will get the vaccine that didn't work.
When did we talk to Dr. Brilliant, Susan, the smallpox expert? Was that before COVID or early in COVID?
It was like probably
I feel like
2021, maybe.
So it was during COVID.
No, or was that a Michelle thing?
It was a Michelle thing.
So it was early.
So was it during COVID, you think?
No.
Okay, so before COVID, I spoke to a smallpox expert, and I was asking about. I don't think I had the word lockdown in my lexicon because it was not a medical thing. And he said, you don't have to tell people anything. They do when they're in real danger, they do it automatically. They distance, they pull away, and they go inside, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And so here's how we should do it: that we should have organizations that we trust. I used to trust the CDC. That's who I would go to for advisory information. That's how it worked throughout my career. But they suddenly became, thus saith the Lord, telling you how to act, which they never were. And even in all the pandemic planning this government had, they were not that. They threw that out and just claimed the high ground. But which, again, we should think about if we're going to follow any sort of advisory agency, that we also limit what they can do in an emergency. But they tell us what to do, and if we trust them, we do it. They give us the evidence for why they're doing it.
Yeah, I would like them to be severely limited in their power and authority, and I would like to go back to the days when I ignored what they told me, like you can't eat this kind of cheese or sushi when you're pregnant, and you can't drink if you're a woman between the ages of 14 and 45,
Yes.
or you can't eat raw, not raw, but rare hamburger. I mean, that's all been up there on their website for eons.
Food pyramid.
And we all ignored it.
Food pyramid, everybody.
I want to go back to ignoring them.
Okay.
That's what I would like.
And if you want to know how shitty their advice can be, look at the food pyramids. Somebody over at Twitch is asking me, who is Dr. Brilliant? His name is Dr. Lawrence or Larry Brilliant. Larry Brilliant. He's a smallpox expert, and we were just talking about smallpox outbreaks.
So anyway, after being chased out of San Francisco, it's only a matter of time, really, until I would resign from Levi's. And I spent a year and a half trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And I was interviewing at big corporate jobs and being told I needed to apologize for the things I'd done and said. And I said, no, why would I do that? I was right. Even if I wasn't right, I don't think I should have to apologize, because my whole point the whole time is there needs to be a discussion about this. Is there harm being caused? Is it effective? But that was unacceptable, and consensus was manufactured by silencing any dissenters.
Of course.
So I decided I was going to have to start my own thing, not what I wanted to do necessarily at 55. I thought I'd maybe retire soon after one more big job, but I decided to start my own brand that combines my athletic background, my fashion experience, and voila, XXXY Athletics was
So
born.
you can follow the XXXY on X at XX_XY Athletics. Support her there, xx-xyathletics.com. Sayeverything.com. What's on sayeverything.com these days?
That's like my writing and, my stuff. Go to the brand website. That's better.
Do you find it odd that you've been cast in this position at your present age after the career you've had, or have you always been unable to, not say certain things when it's required?
No, I was a gymnast. You were silent. You were seen but not heard. Yeah. Obedience was drilled into us. If you weren't quiet and obedient, you didn't get picked for the team. Mm-hmm. So it took me a long time to kind of find my voice, and I think I found it not until I was in my late 30s, and I wrote my first book called Chalked Up, where I talked about the abuse in the sport, the emotional, physical, and sexual abuse in the sport.
But that really, to me, sounds like the through line to where you knew better than to stay shut up.
Yeah, and
you
protecting
learn not
kids.
To shut up.
And protecting children.
Yeah,
I look back on the time and why did I write the book? And I think I I didn't know what would happen. You sit in your room quietly writing a book. You're not really sure how the world is going to receive it.
Yeah.
I wasn't even sure I'd get it published. I was an executive, not a writer.
Right.
And then it came out, and they came for me. The Olympic movement, the USOPC, USA Gymnastics, they just, dragged me through the mud. It was the early days of social media. I did not know what that was going to be like or what
year
to
was that?
expect. 2008.
Oh, so there was social media.
There
then.
was,
Yeah.
but it was like Facebook.
Yeah,
basically.
Or even MySpace.
Maybe, yeah. I never did that one. And I just realized the more they vilified me, that there was something even bigger probably that they were hiding. And I just felt like I don't want another child to go through this. And then you kind of get used to it. You
do get. Isn't that weird how you get used to the negative stuff? It sort of goes under the category of getting a thick skin, but it's more than that because it's so persistent and profound and horrible.
Yeah,
it's sort of like humans can get used to anything, and you can even get used to the stuff pouring down on you.
And my skin's not that thick. I mean,
Mine
my
isn't either.
feelings get hurt.
Yeah,
My
you can't
husband's-
not get hurt by it.
Yeah,
you get
my
it, but
husband's
you get
pretty
used
good
to
at
it.
it.
But you still get used to getting hurt.
Yeah.
You just get sort of like, all right.
He just doesn't care. My husband doesn't care what anyone thinks of him. He's like, this is what I think. I mean, he cares what I think, and that's about it. But, I got used to it. But I have to say, with the gymnastics, it was horrible within my sport community. The outer world was listening. Now, it would take another 8 years until the case of Larry Nassar was exposed.
Right.
And then, really the gymnastics world and the Olympic movement had to sort of embark upon a reckoning. But COVID was different because it was the world. There was no one. It felt very lonely to speak out. And, thank goodness my husband and I were on the same team. You hear about couples that weren't. I don't even know how you go through that.
That'd be weird.
But again, I started in the beginning just asking questions like, what if this maybe isn't the right thing? It seems like the median age of death is quite high. Maybe we don't need to lock children at home. And I was always very diplomatic and polite and cited data, even though I'm not a doctor. And the more people pushed back at me, the more I was determined to keep asking questions. So I don't know what it is. And now I just don't care. I think once you've been canceled a few times, you're uncancelable. So I might as well just
lean into it.
Yeah.
It's worth noting, Susan, thank you for being of like mind. Even though we didn't exactly agree on things, we were sort of we were sort of following each other through the path, I think, weren't we? Or were you harboring?
Drew's been canceled several times.
Yes.
You were
That's
harboring
why-
ill will quietly.
Were you harboring concerns?
No, I was very supportive. Very supportive.
Caleb, were you trying to say something?
No, that wasn't me.
Not you. So we appreciate you coming into the studio. I know you're in town for various things, and this is great to have you here. What else do you want people to know? To give you a chance to have at it in our studio here.
Well, I mean, the first thing I want people to know is we make amazing product. Like, this is not a gimmick.
By the way, you can see that in the ads. Go ahead and put the stuff up there again, Caleb, if you could. You can see the quality. Not that one so much, but the one with the shorts and all. It's just like, oh yeah, these are great. So this you can tell the quality right there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in this as a gimmick.
Yeah. Well, you know the difference.
And I know the difference. I want to build a brand for the long term. As evidence of how great the fit and the quality is, our returns are like minuscule. So that says to me people love the product. So that's the first thing. If you try it, you're going to like it. It's incredible workout product, incredible casual sweats, all that kind of stuff. There's amazing t-shirts. My t-shirt is just a fun one. Just say it. And 70% of Americans agree with us that women's sports should be for women. So lean in, have the hard conversations, wear the t-shirt, go to the soccer game. Every time I wear that logo tee people lean into me on the weekends and they say, I agree with you. But they whisper it. They say, I agree with you. And I say, then stand up. You need to stand up.
They'll get there.
It's ridiculous, that our message is banned when 70% of Americans agree with us, and it's just common sense.
There we are. Well,
It's
I
sideways.
do have it sideways. Where's the top?
Yeah, I was like,
That's
what
the
what
top.
There it is.
gender is that? Oh, okay,
And
there you
this,
go.
even the t-shirts are very
High quality.
Yeah, these are not.
stuff. Show them the black thing.
Oh, you want me to do a little? Well, here's a work.
Love this.
Here's a workout tee for you, Drew. This is very soft. It's moisture
Ooh,
wicking.
that is beautiful.
Here's some leggings for Susan. Very soft.
I'm going to ask a crazy
I love
question.
green.
Very flattering.
This is such high quality. Do other companies buy your stuff from you once you know what I mean? This is like a specific thing.
Oh yeah, you're gonna
This feels beautiful.
Black zip up is amazing.
Let's see.
And this is for Susan?
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Some
is
women.
for you.
Yeah, she has
Oh, yeah.
nice women's
We'll
stuff.
be on this.
This came out just today, so you're one of the you're actually the first,
Oh
other
my
than
gosh, look at
employees.
this. I dig it.
It's really
Thank
soft.
you. So this is a soft,
twisted.
sort of a give me the camera again if you could, Caleb. It is a sort of a collared zip up.
Where do we
zip.
buy this?
No, it says, but a pullover sort of sweatshirt, but you could wear this out and about. I mean,
You
this
could
is
wear it if you have a casual workplace. Certainly a good,
Yeah.
my team laughs at me when I call it a layering piece, but if you work in fashion a long time, that's what it is.
Yes.
You could wear it if you were outside
wear it
running
skiing.
or walking in the
Oh,
fall
yeah,
or
underneath.
skiing.
For
Yeah.
sure skiing.
Here's our little I don't know where the camera is either.
You hold it up in front of you.
Okay,
and we'll let him-
Olympic collection. Well, it's not the games. Get ready for the games. Team Women is what we're supporting.
Interesting.
Oh, nice.
Team Women. That's been
So-
doing well.
So let's talk about that. So,
And then
so-
where do we find it, by the way? I don't know off the top of my head.
You know what? Here's a fun little URL, thetruthfits.com. That's where you go.
So the topic is challenging to talk about because if you misstep, you're could talk about it. You're considered somebody that doesn't support and states. What do they do? What do they?
Well, I actually think the NAIA, their solution is a good one.
What's the NAIA?
The NAIA, I'm going to not know what it actually stands for, but it's a governing body for collegiate athletics, club sports. So it's below the NCAA.
Okay.
Club sports, intramurals, some of the D3 schools are in NAIA. They made a decision, a pronouncement a couple of months ago that said women's sports are for biological women only. You have to have been born a woman. There's no if then, there's no if you started, blah, just women. The men's category, open. Anyone can compete in the men's category.
Okay.
Now, the other option is the third category that's open. So you could have men's and a third side open. The third category, a few sports have tried it and no one wanted to compete in it. And this is where I start to get a little more angry about it, because for a biologically male swimmer, Leah Thomas is rejecting that category. That means that Leah is using women's sports to validate his identity. That's not what women's sports is for.
Well, that's an interesting observation because I think that's exactly what activists would say she's doing and should do.
Right, and that we are obligated as women to validate Leah's identity, and I am not obligated.
So that's really where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
Are you obligated so far as to destroy this thing that we were, I thought, cherishing and protecting, which is women's competition, Title IX? Yeah. It is the problem that people, well, clearly that NAIA it's called?
Yes.
Clearly they were willing to have a tough conversation. Where are those people? They should stand up and
they have. I don't want to criticize it, and it's the least influential governing body.
I get that, but they seem to have come with really they seem to have had the cushion at least. How did they do it? How did they do that?
They did.
How could other people do that?
Yeah, and I think that they cited the safety concerns.
Well, that's the big issue, right?
That is one.
That's where it starts.
I think that is a big issue.
Yeah.
I think safety is a huge issue, but I think fairness is as well. The fact is if male-bodied athletes who identify as women can compete in women's sports, and we know that number is accelerating by the day, why would women want to continue to compete? It's not a fair playing field. I lost all the time in gymnastics. I lost constantly. You lose more than you win.
Yeah.
But it was a fair fight.
Yeah. No, I think that's what scares me is going to happen. It's going to destroy women's sports. It's
Me
just because women. I mean, there will be certain women's sports like gymnastics will probably survive.
I used to think that, but I found recently, I went into like an Instagram rabbit hole, and there are males competing in NAIA and women's gymnastics, and given the changes in the sport, it's not about grace anymore. It's about power and strength and tricks and how hard you can, the hardest trick you can do.
Yeah.
Men are going to be better than women. They will. So I've changed my mind on that too.
Will there be any women's sports left unaffected?
How about figure skating? Have they gotten in there yet?
I'm sure.
No,
I don't know. That's
because
a
you have
good
to
question.
be so tiny and like.
But to Jennifer's point, it's the same issue in figure skating, which they've taken away the artistry and brought in.
They could do a
points.
triple axel,
right?
and
Exactly, win the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean the male that I saw, and he wasn't even claiming to be female. He was just competing in women's gymnastics on Instagram, and the ease
Was he
with
making
which
a point, or was he?
No, he was just like, I want to do women's gymnastics. Well, you don't get to. You have men's gymnastics. You don't get to. I'm sorry. I want to be 5'9".
I want to be a
don't
top
get
model,
to.
right?
Right? I don't get to. I would like to be 20 years younger.
I know
I
that
don't
feeling.
get to. So that's my fear, because I was a beneficiary of Title IX. I started gymnastics 2 years after Title IX
Wow.
became law.
Yeah.
I enjoyed so many benefits from that. And I think in my adult life, my discipline, my resilience, all of those things came from sports. And people say, oh, it's just a few trans-identified male athletes. You know what? There's been over 600 medals, awards, team births taken from women
600. Interesting.
in just the last few years.
You got 15% off on your clothing line, someone says. Is that true?
If you sign up for email, you get 15% off the first order. Yes.
There you go. Thank you, those of you on Restream that
Somebody's
are
shopping.
following up. Yeah,
Go
supporting
shop.
Jennifer.
Support band
Yeah, it's
brands.
good quality. I checked it out.
Yeah, and I just support band brands. If you care about free speech, if you care about open exchange of ideas, weigh in. Tell people, and you're going to get great product too.
Yeah,
I
it's
buy
good.
band books. I support band brands. It's
Yeah.
the way to go.
We support band people too.
Band people also, yes.
Yeah, you ban people. Yeah.
We support trans too, but
Yeah. Listen,
we're having a discussion here, so
Well, I
don't think
it's important.
I
that
don't think standing
everybody
up
has
for-
an opinion.
It's
so.
true, and I don't think standing up for women and girls is anti-trans.
No, it's
I
not.
support
Well, that's precisely why we have to have these conversations, so we can navigate these things and support people who identify as women who were not born in that body, or the other way around.
They
It's
just are better transforming to a woman, or
This
vice
is
versa.
about maybe we need a different word than fairness. I'm wondering if there's another word.
Everyone deserves empathy and kindness. Everyone deserves to be treated fairly. No one should be hurt for who they are.
No, of course
but
not.
but there is a reason the physical differences between men and women are enduring. Do you know who said that? Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason Title IX exists, and women compete in sports. I think it's 1,000-fold since Title IX was
Yeah.
implemented. I'm not willing to go backwards on that. There's a way for everybody to participate and everybody to be respected, but I'm not going to back down in standing up for women because, let's face it, a bunch of males are telling me I have to. In any other guys, this would be considered misogyny. And
What
I
about a
actually
transport segment? Like if we could just have.
You
Well, that's what
could.
she said, the third category, right?
Yeah.
That essentially be that third category that NAIA was trying to promote.
Well, they just do two, and they say the men's category is open.
No, but I thought you said they also said you could create a third category.
No, some sports have tried, and no one participated.
I see.
Well, they're not. There's such a small segment of the population that it's hard probably to field a
I think
team.
that's true. I feel like it's not really my job to come up with the solution.
No.
No, and you're fighting for women to have the opportunity to have a fair fight.
But you have climbed into this topic.
I have, yeah. I just
And-
women deserve the opportunity to compete, to make the team, and they actually deserve the chance to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well,
It's such a
get
touchy
over this.
subject.
This whole show.
We've had a
today-
couple of touchy subjects today.
Yeah, it has me overwhelmed.
Yeah, what am I
emotionally
gonna? Yeah, I just figured when I was talking with a friend and came up with the idea together for this brand, and I thought, why the hell not? At this point, I've already touched every third rail you can touch. So I might as
you
well
want to
do
lean
it.
into
Let's
it.
bring Harvey back
Well,
and be nerdy again.
At very least, it forces this conversation. I would avoid it otherwise, and you're
Right.
and it's because I don't want to hurt anybody, and I'm not a woman, I'm not an athlete, but by the same token, I would fall into that 70% of just keeping his head down and just want to let this thing work itself out, which is exactly what both of us have said we cannot do anymore. None of us can do that anymore.
Yeah, and for me, what this issue represents, because it is about women in sports and protecting sports and spaces and women's shelters and prisons for women, so they have safe spaces, they deserve that. But it's also about the truth. And I really can't think of an issue that is more fundamental that we all have known since the beginning of time, then that male and female bodies are different. And if we are compelled to lie and say they're not, they're the same, you can be, if you're a man and you want to compete in women's sports because you say you're a woman, that's sufficient. And in some school districts, that is sufficient. You don't even, no transitioning needs to happen. You just say it. That is a lie.
Yeah.
So that's why it gets me agitated, because I'm not going to further a lie.
Well, it's interesting to me that your instincts are about protecting children, and that quickly goes over to protecting women. Those are the same for you, right? Sort of?
They come together, I think.
And I had the same sort of thing with Naomi Wolf. I always saw her as somebody protecting women, and I asked her, I go, well, how'd you get on? Now you're going down a really interesting path. This is different. She goes, no, this is the same. It's the same. I've been a freedom fighter for women, and freedom has always been top of mind. And I didn't see that in her writings early on. I'm wondering if there's again, for you, much like freedom was the subtext for Naomi, is there a subtext for you in these instincts?
I think, people ask me why COVID in particular in open schools was a hill you were willing to die on. And I tell them, if free speech and children are not hills you're willing to die on, I don't believe you have a hill and you have no principles at all. So I guess it's that free speech and the free speech and children.
Yeah.
Because children are the most vulnerable among us. They can't vote. They will try to please you. They will do terrible things that harm themselves to try to please the adults all around them. It would frustrate me so much when I would hear parents saying, he loves the mask. He loves staying home all the time.
Oh, yeah.
He's 4.
Yeah.
And those awful videos of the parents, and the preschool
the
teachers
2-year-old.
forcing
on airplanes, they would kick the kids off the plane, and the
I
parents
know
would be
this.
yelling and try to get a 3-year-old to keep a mask on.
As a 14-year-old training in gymnastics, the things I was willing to do that my coaches were for. I trained on a broken ankle for 2 years. Subsisted on a 300-calorie a day diet. I didn't complain.
You're trying to please your adult keepers.
Yeah, and I spent a lot more time with my coaches. They were keepers than my parents. I spent 8 hours a day with these coaches. So children and free speech, and the reason the free speech part matters is because we cannot ever get to truth. We cannot ever learn.
And we can get into trouble, and thereby children become vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is a connection there. I see it. I get what you're saying.
And when truth is what the government says it is, we no longer live in a democracy.
We live we are through the looking glass of that, but we are in Alice in Wonderland, man. It's this whole experience to me remains mind blowing. And my friend Kat Timpf, who is on Gutfeld regulation, she one night on the show we were watching her, and she goes, some of us have not gotten over COVID. I thought, that's me. I've not gotten over this. I've just not gotten over it. Not the illness, not the virus, nothing.
No.
What the government did, what happened, what scientists did, what my peers did. I can't get over it. I don't think I ever will.
I can't imagine. I don't think I'll ever get over it either. I will always be on guard. And unless there was a global mea culpa, the powers that be were to say, we were wrong,
and we will never let this happen again. And here's how.
That will never happen. And the media, who was complicit in all this, but I can't really imagine. My neighbors, I could never forgive them. The friends who have, abandoned me for 30 years because I said these things while sending their own children to private school. But I can't imagine what it feel like to be a doctor and see your peers. It
was bewildering, astonishing, and I was immediately trying to make sense of it. And the two things that jumped out at me early were, oh my God, they're all employed now. They're all employees. 70% of doctors are employees, and they're afraid they're going to lose their job. And that was the first thing I saw. The other thing was the consequence of things that were starting early in my career. They were called clinical pathways. The hospital started putting these clinical pathways into place, which were things that doctors were supposed to follow, didn't have to do, but just recommendations. Oh no, now those are thus saith the Lord. They're part of the electronic record, and these people can't think for themselves, and they are fully indoctrinated in this centralized authority system. And that is not good medicine. No, the worst.
And it seemed to me, what made it clear to me, and I have several doctors in my family, my dad included, he's retired now, but that there isn't much thinking around those pathways or required plans. And we're seeing that now with, trans ideology. You talked earlier about how ideological the CDC, for instance, has become. But so has the American Academy of Pediatrics. So has the whatever the Psych Association is. It's completely captured in
look at the
ideology.
opiate epidemic. It was the exact same playbook.
It is, but what I don't understand is that was all exposed.
It took 20 years.
It did, but it was whenever it was for the general public, probably not until the books and the movies came out for the general public.
Yeah.
And they're willing to look at big pharma and doctors as having really screwed up.
Yes.
Fucked up, right?
Yes.
They really, and at the same time, they're like, well, not this time. Not with the COVID vaccine. They're not making that. They're doing the right
I think
thing.
it'll take 10 years for that.
But why don't they make the connection?
It's a brand new day each time. Listen, I'm only now starting to get some traction with showing people how the playbook for the opiate pandemic was identical to COVID and identical to some of these other things that are going on. And people, they don't see it, they don't get it, they don't believe it, but they're starting to see it. It takes a while.
Yeah, I mean, corporate, I'll tell you, I've had conversations with CEOs and executives who will say things like, well, the big pharma executives, they're the most values-driven.
Values-driven?
Meaning, like, all they want to do is do good in the world.
No, that's not. I actually believe I've worked around these companies and with these companies, and they are that way. Except they're not. It's odd.
They're for-profit organizations.
They're for-profit. They have fiduciary responsibility to the stockholders, and the regulators are too. It's the regulatory piece. They're just doing what they do. They want to help, and the regulator goes, "Come on, we'll help you." Great, I want to help people. It causes excesses. It breaks the checks and balances aren't in place.
Right.
I don't want to blame the executives for that so much because they're just doing what they do. And again, I've met great ones.
Yes, but to sort of look at it with no skepticism. When you
of
know
course.
that what happened with the opioid crisis and all these other things, I am skeptical always. And
the opioid thing was perpetrated not by the pharmaceutical company, but by my profession.
Yes.
And you know how it ended? No. The pharmaceutical blew wind into the sails of what my profession was doing. It was the regulators that put it all on steroids.
Yeah.
It was that the evangelizing physicians got the control of the regulators. Pain is the fifth vital sign.
Right.
Pain is more important than anything.
Right.
And pain is what the patient says it is. Pain controls what the patient says it is. If you underprescribe, you go to jail.
Right.
Not malpractice, jail.
That's bad.
And do you know how it all ended? Nobody knows how it ended because I witnessed the end. I was there. I was in the room when it ended. They did a symposium at the White House about the opiate pandemic, and there was a lot of cabinet level officials there, and they talked. It was well done. It was nice to see everybody thinking about it. But Jeff Sessions, God bless him, got up there with his southern drawl, and he goes, "I see what's going on here. I know how to fix this." Yeah, he goes, "I've done with things. I know how to do this. You watch me. In 4 months, this is gonna be over." He put a bunch of doctors in jail, ended.
Yeah.
Once they did the opposite of what they had done to initiate the thing, which is put doctors in jail for not treating pain.
Right.
Now they went to jail for treating pain. Doctors froze.
Right.
Woke up out of their trance. What's the matter? Is he going to say something? Okay, good. So he's obviously Susan leaning into her microphone. I'm like, oh, am I okay? And it was gone in 6 months.
So on a smaller scale, I'll tell you a brief story, and then you probably need to kick me out.
I do.
In 2017,
Yeah, we have a director waiting in the driveway.
I went with a bunch of gymnast Nassar victims and met with Dianne Feinstein well before she passed to get passage of the Safe Sport Act.
Yeah.
She said, "I can pass a law. We'll put the first coach we put in prison."
Yeah.
For abusing, whereas before they were just moved on like Catholic priests.
Yeah.
She said that will change things, but you have to change the culture. So it was the same thing. They started to actually prosecute.
I'm glad they know that they do that, that they have that ability, that the government can function that way and on the side of what's right.
Yes.
Not on
And
just
she
on
did.
good for her.
Credit to her.
I'm glad to hear that. That makes me feel good about our government. I'm not feeling too great about them these
Me
days.
neither.
So,
Yeah, me neither.
So listen, thank you for being here. Thank you for
Thanks for
coming
having me.
in. And congratulations on XX_XY on X, which gets confusing, all the X's.
Yeah.
If we can support you in any way, please, I hope you let us know. And if there's other things you need to push out there, we're happy to have you come in or get Zoom in, whatever it might be. Any last words before I
No, thanks for having me.
push you
Check
out
out
of
the
here?
site. You'll love the product, I promise.
I know, listen, I'm holding the product and it is spectacular.
Good quality.
No, listen, There is a difference. You're a brand executive. There is a difference. I want to.
You can wear that on your V-shred.
I mean, honestly, you can see the difference through the camera. Like you can tell if that's better. That's better
It's
quality than the
colored.
stuff you're
This
going to
is
find
phenomenally-
online. Like you can tell.
That looks like another
Everything
brand I have.
by comparison, feel like
I won't
it
tell
would
you.
fall apart. Susan, you want to say anything about your program coming up? At 3 o'clock?
So today's Calling Out with Susan Pinsky. We have the psychic rebel Colby and medium Cindy Kaza from the Holzer Files. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, but they're coming in. And by the way, Drew, you're the guest because our main guest is freaking out and doesn't want to do it anymore.
Let me talk to her.
Yeah. Anyways, you're going to be on with her, and then I don't know.
shouldn't freak
People
out.
freak out. I know.
Is she in there? Oh, that's her picture.
We're bringing light and love. But anyways,
right.
that's at 3 p.m. and we have to move on because I have a director waiting in the green room, and he needs to get to work. And I have to put some makeup on.
We have been very people have been very kind with their time. But Caleb, Susan, Jay, who's out.
Yeah, and thank you so much for all the people 100,000 people that watched on Rumble last week. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys can come back today. I feel like it's not real, so I want
the
to see if
rants today too, and the restreams are very interesting.
And
So
I'd
think
love
about
to
it.
get Rumble followers as a guest on my show to get a psychic
You know what?
medium.
Also, we should have said something. We had a
reading.
bunch of UK followers when Thompson was on, when Tommy was on. Tommy, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. And too bad we didn't promote then for you.
There's like 10,000 people watching on X too. We really appreciate your viewership and YouTube as well. Thank you for everything,
Dave
you guys.
Smith on Tuesday, everybody. Check that out. We'll be in New York. A quick thing on your website, Jennifer. They're saying that it doesn't say you have to sign up for an email to get that 15% off. Is that simply true?
No, I can't hear anything. I don't know if you can hear
Okay.
me.
Go
It'll
ahead.
pop up if you go for the first time, and you'll sign up,
automatically
and
ask
it'll
for you.
automatically
Got it.
ask you.
Okay.
But the other thing is 30% off on Team Women, so you get that without signing up.
Perfect. And D-Rod, I will look into Nadav here. That's an interesting idea. Good job. Good job. Thank you guys for the stream. Show up as a swing by. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it very much. Dave Smith next Tuesday, 3 o'clock Pacific time. We will see you there. Thank you to our guests today. Greatly appreciate it. We'll see you at 3 o'clock for Susan's program. And I think you'll enjoy the guest. See you then. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.